Today, my guest is the world-renowned business educator and executive coach, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Advising over 150 CEOs of some of the most successful companies, he now turns his expertise towards helping us all be the best that we can be. With his book, The Earned Life, co-authored by Mark Ryder, Marshall shares his wisdom on how to lose regret and choose fulfillment in order to increase our happiness and overall performance. As always, a very special thanks to my patrons who make this podcast possible. If you enjoy listening, please subscribe and visit my website, barrykibrick.com, to become a patron or just to get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you. Now sit back and soak up the wisdom of Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall, it is such a pleasure to see you again. You look great, and the ability to discuss your book, The Earned Life, is going to be such a treat for my listeners. I can't thank you enough for coming on Between the Lines.
Oh, I love it. I love the last time I was with you. We had so much fun together. So thank you so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. And I think the subheading is really cool because it's lose regret and choose fulfillment. And you really feel that regret is that empty and most, as your words are, most desolate of human emotions. It is feeling like I wouldn't wish on any human being, you say. And it's true. What could be worse than living a life you regret?
Yeah, it's looking back on your life and feeling like, what was that all about? And why did I do that? Or why did I do these deep existential things I wish I had not have done? Or why didn't I do what I think I should have done?
Well, you say, though, that regret is totally within our control. Now, the feelings that may lead up to it, I'm not sure about, but regret itself, you say, is totally within our control.
Well, rather than just answer this more intellectually, we'll do an exercise.
Love it.
A big part of the book, this is basically a Buddhist philosophy book. You know, as you know, I'm a philosophical Buddhist. I'm not a religious Buddhist. I'm a philosophical Buddhist. And the book is really a book of Buddhist philosophy. And if you look at it, part of Buddhist philosophy is every time I take a breath, it's a new me. So, you know, a good way to deal with this regret thing is this. I want everybody to take a deep breath. Now think, new me, new me, new me. Everything that was done in your life before this second was done by an infinite set of people. They were called the previous me's, the previous yous. Now think back on those infinite set of yous and think of all the gifts they have given to you that's listening to me right now. Think about the nice things they've done and think about how hard those people tried. Now, if anybody did that many nice things, what should we say to these good people? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, did a few of those previous versions of Barry make a little mistake or two? Who's the first person we need to learn to forgive? Let's forgive this person right here. Let's forgive ourselves. And, you know, I've interviewed thousands of parents around the world and I asked this question. When my child grows up, I want my child to be. And I say, give me one word. One word comes up from parents more than every other word combined, no matter what country I'm in. What's that word? Happy. You want your kids to be happy? You want your parents to be happy? You want the people who love you to be happy? You want the people who respect your work to be happy? You go first. You be happy.
Marshall, it is the most difficult person to make happy. We'll get into that, is ourselves. And especially, and I find this, I almost don't know the exception, and there must be some exception to this rule, but you mention it in the book, in fact, how empathy is one of those key characteristics, key virtues that we all want. And yet, when you are empathetic and you're caring, believe it or not, that's You almost are harder on yourself. I find empathetic people, because they're caring, to be harder on themselves as if they're not doing enough. And this is one of those, I guess, as you call it, the existential regret. I'm not doing enough. And you really want us to know that we are. And in order to do that, you say, we have to be open.
A couple of points. One point is empathy. And I like the chapter in the book on empathy because it wasn't until I was past 70 that I thought about this. I always saw empathy as a positive thing. It sounds good, like fuzzy teddy bears or puppy dogs or something warm and sweet. Empathy always sounded good. And then I started studying empathy, and one type of empathy is exactly what you just talked about, the empathy of caring. Sounds good. Well, or maybe I feel your pain. The empathy of feeling sounds good. Not always. Not always. Dr. Patrick Frias is a member of the group of people that really inspired the book, and he works in a children's hospital. And he said the first 2 months as a medical doctor, when he was working with the kids, he cried every night. And he said, I can't do this and be effective. Dr. Jim Downing, he's the head of St. Jude's. He's another member of our group, St. Jude's Children's Hospital. He watches kids die of cancer every day. He can't take that home. He can't take that home. He's got a wife. He's got children. He's got grandchildren. He can't carry that stuff around. He needs to learn to let it go. So the empathy of caring that you talk about can be very positive, can be very negative. That's why doctors don't operate on their children. They care too much. Now, the funny story in the book, though, those stories seem a little more obvious. Here's a funny story. A hedge fund manager, of all people. Now, a hedge fund manager, anybody that doesn't care is a hedge fund manager. All these guys care about is one thing, money. So I'm sitting there watching a billionaire hedge fund manager interview 3 billionaire hedge fund managers. And this is years ago when $1 billion was a lot of money. And he's interviewing him. And he says, why don't you have your own fund? And the guy that's worth $3 billion says, I'm not as good as I was. He said, why aren't you as good? He said, I started caring. Now, he said, before, when I was younger, I made tens of billions of dollars and I lost tens of billions of dollars, but I made 52, lost 48. That's why I'm rich. He also said, though, when I was younger, I didn't care. As I got older, I started thinking, this is someone's retirement account. And maybe this is their retirement. And he said, I became much more conservative and much less effective.
Oh,
and he said,
wow.
He said, today, I only invest my own money. Well, he's worth $3 billion. You win, you lose. Who cares? It's just a game anyway, right? I only invest my own money. I don't invest others. Why? I'm not as good because I started caring too much.
Well, that's, and you balance that out in your book, An Earned Life. But you say something that's very important. An earned reward, not connected to a higher purpose, is a hollow achievement. And I think that right there, in fact, you even said, and someone once told me this, you said, the people you admire most are the people that would do what they do if they made no money. And when I was, still am, I'm always struggling financially, and I'll never forget, I had a very major business guy who was a friend of mine come up to me and he says, you know why you don't make money? It's not what you really care about that much. You really care about the other things you're doing. And in a sense, I did. That was the truth. And I don't regret it. I really ended up doing what I wanted to do. And believe it or not, although I did not make a lot of money, I was able to make enough that I do not have any regrets.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, I've always admired what you do. You've had a great life. And so I think I'd give you an A on this category. I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And, the other interesting thing that the book talks a lot about that you referred to already is this business of results. A key point of the book is never place your value as a human being based on any kind of results. Like money is a good example. Never. Why? For a couple of reasons. One, we don't control the outcomes anyway from a lot of what we do. I mean, there's COVID. I didn't create COVID. You didn't create COVID. Number one, we don't control the outcomes. And if we get our value becomes based on the outcomes, a lot of it's just going to be luck. Number two, though, which is more important, let's assume you achieve the results. How much longer does that bring satisfaction and happiness? A minute, a day, a month? Not much. Not much. One of the people, and one thing I'm very proud of in the book, if you read the first 6 pages, is the endorsements.
Oh my, that's a who's who itself.
and the first chapter I love, I talked about the first part of the endorsements. It says what? They may have learned from me, but I learned much more from them. I tried to be real clear on that. Although I was supposed to be their coach, they taught me much more than I taught them. Well, one of the guys, his name is Albert Bourla, and Albert's CEO of Pfizer. So I said to Albert a few months ago, Albert, how's it going? How's it going? How was last year? He said, well, last year, pretty good. Came up with this vaccine thing. That was good. And stock price all-time high, and employee engagement all-time high, and pride in the company all-time high, and CEO of the year, and wrote a book. I said, Albert, this is great. What's your problem? He said, I have a huge problem. 2 words. Next year. Next year.
Oh, boy.
Next year. If Albert's value as a human being is he has to do better than last year, he can pack it in. We don't want him to do better than last year. We don't want there to be another pandemic. It's not going to happen. Michael Phelps won 25 gold medals. What did he think of doing after winning the 25th medal? Killing himself. Why? Couldn't do more. The National Football League players, disasters after they retire. Disasters, bankrupt, divorced, depressed. Why? Got to beat last year. Can't do it anymore. Can't do it. So one of the things I talk about is that is a fool's game. Now, one of the guys in our group is Safi Bakal. And Safi, an amazing, amazing person. He has a PhD in physics from Stanford. His IQ is probably equal to mine and yours combined. Right?
I may be taking away a little bit from him if you add mine in there.
He has a PhD in physics from Stanford. He wrote a great book called Loon Shots, a really good book, a big bestseller. He has made tens of millions of dollars, started companies, consulted to presidents. And he said, I learned one thing in all of our programs together, and Curtis Martin, football player, taught it to him. Curtis is National Football League All-Star, Hall of Fame, number 5 greatest rusher in history. And Curtis is happy. He's happy almost every day. He feels fulfilled in life. He's helping other people. It's just a wonderful person. He said, I learned one thing from Curtis. And Safi talks like a scientist. He said, I used to believe that happiness was a dependent variable based upon achievement. And if I achieve more, I will be happy. He said, Curtis finally taught me something. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. He said, you can achieve a lot and be happy. He does. You can achieve nothing and be happy. You can achieve a lot and be miserable. And you can achieve nothing and be miserable. And that changed his life. And I said to him, Safi, I'm glad you realize this because you already have a PhD in physics from Stanford. You're worth millions of dollars. You started 4 companies. You consulted the president. You wrote a New York Times bestseller. Now, exactly, if that's not enough achievement, what do you got to do? He's already a 99.999 on achievement. What's he supposed to do? Get up to a 99.9999? Do you think it's going to make any difference? No.
But something, Marshall, you give us a little insight to this. You say that the reward of living an earned life is being engaged in the process constantly. So what's happening is you're constantly earning, you're constantly learning, and that's the way that you reward yourself and don't lose that fulfillment, isn't it? So even if you've made all that money, you may not want to keep making money, but you may help a charity. You may do something else. As long as you're still earning that life and engaged in the process. And in fact, you even say, if you've never done it, it's never too late. You mentioned how you didn't even realize what empathy was until your 70s. It's never too late, as you say, to reflect. And you go back to that breathing. And you say, as long as you're breathing, you have more time. And I can't Star that enough. In fact, if I look at my notes, that's all you'll see on there. Stars on each side of that. As long as you're breathing, you have time.
Yes. And, this book is very not Western. Again, it's more of a Buddhist philosophy book. There are many schools of Buddhist thought. So when I say I'm a Buddhist, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot because there's so many different variations and themes. And I make no pretense mine is better or worse. My school of Buddhism is pretty simple. Buddha, or the metaphorical Buddha, whatever, was brought up rich. And his father was a king. And he always believed he will be happy if he gets more. And then Buddha lived in a bubble protected from life. He was able to sneak out 3 times. First trip, what does he learn? People get sick. That's not so good. Number 2, people get old. Ugh. Number 3, you die. Old, sick, and die. That's kind of in the cards there. All that money and status and stuff. Nope, not so much. Still get old, sick, and die. He said, that's no good. He went out in the woods and tried to find peace with less. Starved himself. You know what he learned? Didn't work either. What he finally realized one night, you can never be happy with more. You can never be happy with less. There's only one thing you can never be happy with, what you have. It's only one time you can ever find peace, now. It's only one place you can ever find peace, here. That's to me the essence of Buddhism.
Well, you say you follow your talk about Gautama Buddha when you say that the great Western disease is, I'll be happy when. I can't tell you how often I've heard that. I'll write my book when. I'll read my when. I'll make my when. I'll be, and you're constantly waiting. I remember when I had on the great Baba Ram Dass. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Of course.
And he wrote the great book Be Here Now. And I had him on after he had a massive stroke. And there was a moment of humor where I said to him, Ram Dass, come on, you got to give me something. And he said, well, I'm going to write now. And I said, I can't live in the now. And he says, yes, you can. And I said, how? He said, you're here now. You're here now. You're here now. And here we are. And when I was reading your philosophy, it reminded me a bit of his, but you, as I said, you were more conscious of our Western disease. And I thought that's what made this whole thing come together, because it was if you were reading my mind, as I was about to question, how does that happen, you would give me that answer. And you're very kind to also say that no matter what you do, even with your book, we're going to achieve our understanding at our own pace. That's so important for and you drive that home, because I think that causes more depression in more people and more anxiety, because they don't realize that one key sentence that you have here: we achieve understanding at our own pace. Those are your words, and they should be on a tablet in stone.
I love that. And by the way, it's no wonder we have the Great Western disease. It's a wonder everybody doesn't have it constantly. What is the Great Western art form? Now, I love your show Between the Lines, but I got to tell you, that's not the Great Western art form. The Great Western art form is one drama, and you may have seen it before. It goes like this. There is a person. Oh, the person is sad. Ooh, they spend money. Ooh, they buy a product. Ooh, and they become happy. This is called a commercial. Have you ever seen one of those before? Those commercials? How many thousands of those? Over and over and over and over again. The message is, it's all out there. And once I get the product, spend the money, take the course, make the achievement, get the PhD, once I do that, it's all going to be okay. Not really.
And you let us know too that whatever mistakes you've made, however you've been in your past, you say, these are your words again, it's not a life sentence to remain that person. You can let go of those past transgressions and move on. So many people almost gain comfort in wallowing in their past transgressions. And your book wants to really say, listen, if lose those regrets, choose the fulfillment, don't worry about those transgressions, move on.
You know, one story I love in the book is the story of the husband and wife. And they're going back from the party and they were with the children and grandchildren. It was also positive. And the wife starts in on the, well, why didn't you do this 10 years ago and what you could have been? And the husband says, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. You're right. That guy 10 years ago did a lot of things that I'm not particularly proud of. I am not that person. I've worked very hard to be a different person. And that person is not sitting in the car right now. And the wife says, you're exactly right. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, you follow that thought up with, we don't feel regret because we tried and failed. We regret not doing, not trying. That's right. Where we get our regret. It's never from failure. It's from not doing.
You know, one thing about the book, I have to give due credit there. The book says Marshall Goldsmith and Mark Ryder. Mark Ryder writes the book. Marshall Goldsmith has the ideas. So we have a wonderful partnership. And I do think this is the best book I've ever done. I certainly think it's the best written book I've ever done. And one reason is he personally was with our group of people. And he personally identified, and that story about the guy in the car was him and his wife.
Oh my. Oh my.
Yeah, so that wasn't a theory to him or some abstraction to him. That was him. That was him.
And you know, and I can see how it came about, because you say that, you know, what we dislike even about ourselves may shape us as much as what we love about ourselves. In fact, I tell you, I think it shapes us way more. In fact, our obstacles that get in our way, our emotions that get in our way, if we are able to pick them apart and grow from them, even if it takes until 50, 60, 70, it doesn't matter if it's the day before it ends you find this out. I would be, you're in nirvana, in my opinion. So we do learn so much by the obstacles put in front of us.
And you know what? Again, a little bit history. I didn't cover this yet, but what led to the book, my friend Mark Thompson and I spent 600 hours over COVID with 60 brilliant people who are amazing people. And they talked about their lives every week. And they would get up and say, here's what I'm proud of. Here's the mistakes I made. Here's my biggest challenge. Please help me. They would always ask for help. And they would listen and say thank you. And, you know, feed forward is one of the things I always teach. You ask for ideas, you listen, you say thank you. Buddha said, only do what I teach if it works for you. You ask for an idea, you listen, you say thank you. Don't critique the idea. Just say thank you. And people love that. And the thing I learned from that, along many things I learned, is we're all humans. I mean, if you read the people who endorse the book, you'd somehow think, my goodness, these people don't have problems. Yeah. Wrong. No, wrong. They are just as human as everybody else. Everybody's got kids who get depressed. Everybody's got parents who have Alzheimer's. People get divorced. They get sick. You don't get some pass in life after you achieve all this stuff. And if achievement would make you happy, they would be dancing off the ceiling every day.
Well, that's why you even say, as a coach, your job is, you're already dealing with successful people. So it's not so much that you're coaching them to be successful. Your words are, my job is to establish their resolve. And when I looked at that and saw the word resolve, I thought there was a lot of other words you could put also there, because my job is to establish their resolve really encompasses almost everything they're going to do. Because if you have that resolve and you feel that in your heart and in your soul and in your mind, oh man, like you said, whether you succeed or not, you succeeded. Whatever it is the results were, don't matter, as long as you're able to continue with that passion.
And you know, another point to build on what you just said is this. I'm not saying achievement is in any way a bad thing. Who was the most successful college basketball coach in history? I went to UCLA. And
I had him on my show. He's John Wooden. He's the greatest man of all time.
John Wooden.
Besides my guest.
Well, and by the way, what did John Wooden say about winning? That's not what it's about. John Wooden said, no. He said, I want you to leave that court with your head held high. And if you tried hard and you won, be happy. You tried hard and you lost, be proud. You got nothing to be ashamed of. And by the way, if you tried hard and you won, and if you didn't try hard and you won, you have nothing to be proud of. His whole focus wasn't on the result. His whole focus was on the process of what you're doing now. Duke University, Coach K, same thing. The player hits a great shot, jumps up and down and cheers. What's he say? Next play, next play, next play. They hear it's a bad shot. It's all sad. Next, forget it. Past is over. Move on. Move on. Next play, next play, next play. Oh, yeah, I like the book. It's a new me. That's done. That's done. The other thing that I talk about in the book is the problem with vicarious living. Now, since we have talked before, this has gotten so much worse. It has gotten so much worse in our society. It was bad when we talked before. Oh, it's gone from way bad to way worse. I wrote an article in a book called Community of the Future many years ago, and the article said within 20 years, media addiction will surpass drug addiction, alcohol addiction combined as a social problem. We are there. Facebook, Twitter. I talk about living other people's, the Kardashians, 1 billion times, 1 billion hours spent on the Kardashians. What a waste of life. And I talked to my son. I said, playing video games, what's that about? That's not real. You know what my son said? You completely missed the point, Dad. He said, that's nothing. People have spent hundreds of millions of hours watching someone else play video games online. Oh, there's a guy called PewDiePie, one of the most popular characters on the internet. Hundreds of millions of hours have been spent watching him play video games. One part of the book, you want to live a great life, live your own life. Don't live someone else's life. Don't live vicariously. Now, that is a point I made before. The new point to the book, though, which I didn't realize before, is this. When we live in the past, that's just another form of vicarious living. That's not you. That is not you. You're at the bar. I'm at the bar with some drunk guy, and he's bragging about stuff. He didn't win Super Bowl III. He didn't win Super Bowl III. Some kid won Super Bowl III. That wasn't him. He's living in the past, which is just another form of vicarious living. It's not you. It's a kid. It's a kid. That's not you. You're the guy right now talking to me.
Well, I enjoy you so much, Marshall, and you give us what you call softer attributes, and you say they are things such as timing, gratitude. I think I want to put that gratitude with a real capital G, kindness, listening, and most valuable of all, the golden rule. It's got to be here's the bottom line. If everyone absolutely lived the golden rule, there would be only the golden rulers, and we would be in such a wonderful state. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so we have to be prepared for many things. But when you, at least yourself, can live by that rule, you really do develop an understanding of, I guess, this is where the good part of empathy comes in.
Right.
Because you can feel that as long as you don't let it bog you down, that golden rule, you do unto others or you do not do unto others what you want them to do or not do unto you.
That's right. And I think that's the positive side of empathy. The positive side of, now, in the book, I talk about one thing, and I got this from Telly Leung. Now, if you ever saw the play Aladdin, well, Telly was Aladdin on Broadway for 3 years, 1,000 performances. He was Aladdin. Wow. And Telly really helped me understand empathy, because Telly said, I got to go out there night after night after night, and I've got to demonstrate empathy. Now, Telly's gay. Now, he said, I may be gay, but when I go out there every night, I'm in love with that princess. I'm not gay out there. I'm in love with the princess night after night after night because I have to be. Then I asked him a question. I said, tell him, how did you motivate yourself 1,000 performances of the same show? I mean, how'd you do it? And not just call it in. You know what he said? I was an 8-year-old boy, and life probably wasn't that easy for him. And he went to a Broadway play. And he loved the music and singing and dancing, and he thought that was so wonderful. It made him so happy. You know what he said? Every night he goes out there, this is for you, that 8-year-old boy. And he said, if there's one kid in that audience, one, like that 8-year-old boy, it's all worth it. This is for you. And to me, that is what he defined as singular empathy, which I love. Empathy is not me virtue signaling and talking about how sensitive I am. Empathy is being what I need to be for those people around me.
Well,
and,
you say about those people around you too. That's where, well, you just even mentioned your co-author Mark, and you realize early on that support and help is not, asking for it is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. And in fact, you say we sometimes have these are your words, the lost art of asking for help. And I know that for myself, that was something, in fact, I struggle with it to this day still. And it's not so much that I think...
Breathing. Raise your right hand.
I promise you.
I used to struggle with this.
Absolutely.
I do not have a genetic defect, and I don't have to keep doing this.
I've already stopped. I'm asking for help. So that is something that I do want the listeners to really grasp, that because I get so many emails, and I know you must too, and people, they do have troubles, and sometimes they're asking me for help, and right. I'm not the one that can really give them the help. They need that support from the people around them. And you even say the smartest people that you know, they really build a support group that literally does not resemble them. It's almost filled with people that are not like them, because that's where they need the support.
Well, as you know, in my coaching, my whole coaching is based on the prospect of asking for help. Every one of my clients gets confidential feedback, and everyone has to publicly stand up and say, my name is, I've gotten feedback I want to get better at, please help me, over and over and over again. And one thing I'm very proud about in my life and in this book is 30 years ago, no CEO would stand up and say that. Yeah. They would have been ashamed to say that, embarrassed to say that. Well, look, these people in the book, these are big people. Hey, my name is Alan Mulally. I was ranked, number 3 leader in the world and number 1 CEO of the United States. I need help. Hubert Joly at Best Buy, he gets up in front of everybody. That was a hopeless situation. He turned it around. What did he say? Day one, my name is Hubert Joly. I'm the CEO of Best Buy. I need you. Please help me. Not, I'm better than you. I need you.
We have a mutual... I think he's a real friend of yours. He's a good acquaintance of mine. And that is Gary Ridge of WD-40. And you mention him in the book, and he's one of those leaders. And I think it's your word that he coined servant leadership from, but it's one that he uses a lot now too, and gives you credit for it, or you give him credit. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It's a beautiful term. It's servant leadership. And he's one of those CEOs that is always seeking and looking for help of those around him, and surrounds himself with people who are not like him, but who can offer all the things that he doesn't have.
Gary Ridge is an amazing human being. He just retired after, I think, 14 years as the CEO of WD-40. Retired.
I didn't even know that. When did he retire? He was on my show about 3 months ago.
Just a month or two ago.
Oh,
my gosh. Retired as the CEO of WD-40. His track record was unparalleled financially, and he's a business success as well. Yet his employee engagement scores possibly the highest in the world. Unbelievable. Now, another guy in the group I mentioned is Dr. Jim Downing, head of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. here's what's mind-blowing. The employees at WD-40 got higher scores on finds meaning at work than the employees of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Now, no offense to WD-40, but they're making lubricants here. They're not curing cancer for little kids. They're making lubricants. Now, what did they learn from that? Meaning, a lot of meaning is not what's out there. It's what do I create every day? And he taught people to create meaning where they were, create meaning building relationships, create meaning helping people every day. They were making lubricants. It was still meaningful for them.
In your book, you have a term that you call an elusive concept. It's called adjacency.
Right.
And I want you to get into that a little bit, because you say to discover your adjacency to the life you are already creating. There's something there that bring out a little bit for me and for my listeners, because there's a lot of internal success you can feel when you I don't want to say leave your own comfort zone to go someplace, but stay almost in your comfort zone, but be adjacent to other things that you can do.
And, this is a great concept, because I'm always doing career counseling with people. And what I tell them is, first, let's begin with things that are adjacent to your strength right now. Now, one of the stories in the book is Dr. Paul Hersey, my great mentor, who's coaching me. And I'll never forget, he called me in and he said, Marshall, you're making too much money. Your customers are happy. You're very successful. You're comfortable. You're going to do fine. And you will never be who you could be. You will never be who you could be. You could be more. You're not writing. You're not thinking. You're not doing research. You're just running around like a chicken with your head cut off selling days. He was exactly right. What I went to, though, was an adjacency. I didn't become a different person. I started writing about the stuff I was doing. I started doing more work related to building a brand and really trying to have a bigger and broader impact on the world. Not that I'm a different person. That was adjacent to what I was already doing. And the message I got, which is reinforced in the book, is the great "you can be more" message. If I look at the people who've helped me in my life, they've all told me you can be more. And a lot of times when I got this message, I was doing fine. They weren't saying you're a loser, there's something wrong with you. What did they say? You can be more. Now, one thing I'm proud of in my job is executive coaching used to be fix losers. And it's not, my clients aren't losers. It's about help winners. And the point is, even the winners I work with, who are pretty hard to argue, incredible winners, what's great about them, they're trying to be more.
I didn't even have people have to tell me. I felt that I had to do something more and different. In fact, just so you know, you are the last person I am having on Between the Lines. I am. Now, that doesn't mean that I will not continue to do certain things. I'm going to still stay in the business, but I am adjacent now, writing my own book. I'm keeping it within the thing I know best, which is betweenness and all the things that lie between the things we do not see. Right. And I find that when you are able to stay in that adjacent role, it's empowering. That's the best way I can put it. You feel that you are now I'm doing what I was meant to do. And there is a beautiful feeling. And that's, if I say that's what your book is about, that is what your book is about. You're choosing the best means to fulfill yourself.
Very, very accurate. Very accurate.
And you say if you can't do it, you got to flip the script. And what you meant by that, when I read it carefully, is these words that you wrote, or maybe it was Mark that wrote, but you thought, do for yourself what you have done for others. And again, I go back to that with those who are very empathetic. They would always be able to help a friend or help a neighbor. You sometimes have to flip that script and do for yourself what you've done for others. Because so many times we would never build down or put down our friends or our family or our loved ones, but we might do that to ourselves. And flipping that script, I put that in a 48 font. I'm looking at it right now. I thought that was very important for especially sensitive people to realize they have to do that sometimes.
Well, and going back to Telly's point, we often don't think when we're too self-critical and too hard on ourselves. The unintentional, by the way, no bad intention at all, the unintentionally negative impact this may have on others. Because what happens is people love me. And if all of a sudden they see me as being depressed, unhappy, ashamed, how am I making them feel? I'm not making them feel good. So it's to me, it goes both ways. Another part of the book related to this, and this one has really hit a chord, is in my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which sold a bazillion copies. A lot of that book talks about overselling, adding too much value, trying to be right all the time. Most of the people I coached are CEOs, mostly men, mostly very assertive, and this tended to be their biggest problem. In the book, I have a chapter called Credibility Must Be Earned Twice. Part of credibility is doing a great job. The second part of credibility is being recognized for doing a great job, which is a totally different thing. Now, part of what I talk about is proving ourselves. Now, Peter Drucker said, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart or right. Then he said, every decision is made by the person has the power to make the decision, make peace with that. If I need to influence you and you have the power to make the decision, you're the customer, I'm a salesperson. You don't have to buy, I have to sell. Well, in the book, I talk about credibility must be earned twice. And I talk about it two ways. One is sometimes people try to prove themselves. They try to prove ourselves where it's not worth it. We're showing off. We're proving how smart we are. It's an instinct that does far more harm than good many times. It's very interesting, though. That is that book. I wrote a different book called How Women Rise with Sally Helgeson. A lot of that book talks about underselling, people that need to promote themselves more, but they don't do it. Now, very interesting with the undersellers. And it turned out when I've done a lot of these webinars, I have people vote. Do you tend to oversell or you tend to undersell? Undersell is about 75%, not oversell. I then talk to the undersellers, and I love this. If you ever meet somebody that doesn't promote themselves enough, 3 questions. Question number 1, if you became more powerful and influential, back to the Peter Drucker idea, would the world be worse off or better off? Well, usually they mumble around, but they eventually get to, I think it'd be better off. I said, so do I. Number 2, does trying to promote yourself and become more powerful and influential make you feel uncomfortable? The answer is almost always yes, definitely. Then the punchline is number 3. What is more important to you? Making a positive difference in the world or being comfortable? Boom.
Wow. Wow.
That hits people. And they realize, you know what? I got to do this. Now, let's talk about my book as an example. You may know the statistic, 33 million titles on Amazon, 33 million titles. How many books do you have to sell in 1 year to be in the top half of all of those books? And the answer is 2. 2. Half of them sold 0 to 1 copy last year. Now, I've sold, a couple, 3 million books. I'm not so arrogant to believe that my books are better than those 16 million books. Some of those books have got to be better than anything I ever wrote. No one ever read them. No one ever read them. And if you want, Hubert Joly, my friend that was at Best Buy, wrote a good book called The Heart of Business. And when he retired as a CEO, I said, look, Hubert, I know a lot of CEOs have written books. Usually they're so arrogant, they think they don't have to promote the book, that the book will sell itself, and it sells no copies. If you want to write a book, you get out there and sell it. You're a book salesperson. You believe in it, you go sell it. And he did. I'm so proud of him. Very unlike many CEOs, he wasn't too good to do that. Now, one final one. Have you ever heard this phrase? My good work should speak for itself.
I embarrassingly must have said it to myself 100 times. No more, though. I do not do it anymore.
What a ridiculous phrase. My good work should speak for. Now, why in the world God doesn't have anything better to do this week than to fly down and recognize you for your good work?
Oh.
By the way, if our good work would speak for itself, no company would need a marketing function.
Oh.
No company would need a market. Why am I always out promoting my book? I believe in it. I'm trying to sell copies.
But though, you hit the part why that is troublesome. You say it's because you need to identify the dichotomies. And that's what we're talking about here is a great dichotomy. It's the fact that I think I know what I am doing. I should be able, but I'm not promoting it. I'm not doing it. And you say that those dichotomies that regularly reappear in your life, those are the ones that cause you the problems and failures. So you've got to identify them. And once you do, you're able to then, I'm going to use one more of your words in the book. The right talent cannot shine in the wrong role. So once you can identify those dichotomies, you can identify where the talent lies, and you have it's the only chance you have of shining. And you won't be in the wrong role, you'll be in the right role because you figured it out.
Well, and speaking of which, I'm going to give you some free coaching. Are you ready?
Boy, am I ever.
Free coaching. Now, you are going to be writing a book. Is that correct?
Correct. I am writing a book.
You are writing a book, and you believe in this book. Is that correct again?
Yes.
Then I'm going to help you be a good book salesman.
Come on, brother.
You got to get out and sell it, and it's not going to sell itself.
Yeah.
You got to get out there, and you're a book salesperson. You believe in it. You got to promote it. And then people tell me this, well, I don't really care if my book's a big seller. That's ridiculous. Of course you care. Why are you writing it? Are you writing it for yourself? If you don't care, why are you writing the book in the first place? Of course you care. You should care. Well, you know what? You're a good guy. Is the world going to be better off or worse off because your book is successful? I'm voting for better off. I'm voting for better off here. Well, you got to get it there and sell books.
Well, one of the things about my book, as I said, it's called Between This. I'll start selling it right now.
There you go.
And I wrote this down under your words, okay? Your words were, our transitions are not voids. That's what my book Between This is about. It's about crossing thresholds. It's about transitions, because there is no such thing as a void. That's what's really interesting. There has never been a void. Whatever space is filled, it is filled with riches that we don't even know yet. And this goes back to they attribute it first to Socrates, like they do everything else. You can never go wrong if you attribute something to Socrates, Plato, or Aristotle. But I guarantee you there was, some shepherd or some Cro-Magnon man that probably looked up and said, no void, something's between here and me, and I can sense it. We don't know it, but that's an important thing, that our transitions are not voids. We have to realize that those moments that we make those transitions, they engage us in such a way that, I guess, as you say, I'll use your words, they're just better than mine at this point. It makes you alive and fully engages all the lives that are around you.
And you're reinventing yourself. You're reinventing yourself. That's what you're going to be doing. You are reinventing. What you're doing is a great example from the book. One, you're reinventing yourself. And two, it is an adjacency, both. So you're picking an adjacent path. You're reinventing yourself. You're positive and excited about it. So, perfect.
Then you'll have me on your show and I'll be able to promote it, right?
I will be honored. I will be more than honored.
Oh my gosh. You don't mind sticking around a little longer. I said it'd be an hour, but I'm going to go just a little bit longer with you, Marshall. Is that okay?
Not a problem. All
right. Very important as we're talking about these transitional moments. Your words. We must close the door on one part of our life and open a new door. That's why I said I may be still doing this, but I'm not doing it this way, because you have to. And I'll never forget when I made this realization was from a song I heard, and it was by Bradley Cooper, and it was when he did The Star is Born. He's an actor, but he wrote this song, and I believe, I know he had another musician he worked with, but the words that he said was, maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Yeah. And sometimes that's the best way to, Huxley said it, open up the doors of perception.
I love that. And it's creating a new you. It's a new me. It's a new me. It's a new me. And whatever happened in the past, what do you say those previous yous? Thank you, previous yous. Thank you for everything you've given me. And creating a new you doesn't mean you have anything against the previous yous. They've given you the opportunity. Those previous yous have given you the opportunity to do what you're doing now.
And that's why towards the end of the book, you specifically say, as much as this wonderful advice is, you have to stop and enjoy the journey. Those words, so many of us forget that, take a pause, just enjoy, like you said, that I've got the next breath, the next breath, the next breath. Enjoy the journey.
That's right. And, Bob Dylan had a good quote. He who is not busy being born is busy dying. Well, keep being born.
I'm going to end our conversation, Marshall, with your own words. If I can leave you with only one piece of advice to increase your probability of creating an earned life, it is this. Ask for help. You need it more than you know. Marshall, thank you so very much for continuously helping me through all of you do, and now sharing your wisdom, your insights, and love of life with my audience.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very honored. I've always loved every second I've spent with you, so thank you so much.
Marshall, you are such a doll. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please subscribe or become a patron of the show at barrykibrick.com to keep it going every week. Thank you.